YouTube, what is good? We are coming right back at you with another video. Today, we're going to be talking about hitting tips, what are the best settings you could use, and what are some ways that can make you hit better in MLB The Show 24. Now, before we dive into everything, I do want to say that this entire video is recorded on All-Star difficulty. I do feel like that's the most common difficulty that you would see in online, whether it's BR, event, or in ranked seasons. But these tips do also apply to higher difficulties, so if you are making like World Series pushes and stuff like that, these same tips still apply. But with that being said, let's get into the first thing. Let's talk about your equipment. So the first thing you're going to want to look at is your equipment. Now, granted, this is not something that is like a guaranteed you're going to get good if you change this, but let's consider what you're playing on. Are you playing on an old gen console? Are you playing on a PS5? Are you playing on a TV that's 16 years old? Or are you playing on a brand new OLED computer monitor? These are things that do matter for this game because in MLB The Show, response time is everything. When it comes to your monitor, I do recommend using a computer monitor over a TV. Unless you have a TV that's like $3,000-$4,000, every computer monitor would likely beat it for its response time. That being said, I don't expect you to pause this video right now and go buy a monitor. However, if you do feel like it is necessary to upgrade your monitor, you can get a really good one for anywhere between $100 to $200. All you need to do is make sure that it has a 1 millisecond response time and is able to output at least 144 hertz. That's going to be the frame rate. Now, if you do already have a monitor or a TV that supports both of those things, you're going to want to double check your TV and display options. Inside these options, there's going to be a thing for the refresh rate. This is automatically defaulted to 60 hertz. As you can see, I have two options here. Make sure if you are able to run it, that you are able to run it on the 120 hertz resolution to the highest that's allowed for your screen. Most people, it's going to be 1080p. That's okay. 1440p or 4K is not required, but they do help. Now, when it comes to your controller, both consoles kind of have a different story. When it comes to PlayStation, you are kind of limited to what options you have, either just a standard PS5 controller or the DualSense Edge. I don't play on PlayStation, I'm an Xbox player, but from what I've heard, the DualSense Edge is a better controller to play for MLB The Show. It's got better latencies. It just makes it play smoother and better. Now, if you are on Xbox, you do not want to be using the standard Xbox controller or Xbox Elite controller that you may be able to buy. These controllers have firmware issues. This is not an SDS thing. This is specifically to the console, specifically to the controller, that allows you to not finish pinpoints properly, and it makes your PCI shaky, which obviously is going to make you miss swings. What I recommend using is called the GameSir G7 SE. Now, this is not an ad. This is actually something that I personally recommend. I've been using it for a while. The latency, it's like 3 to 4 milliseconds less than just your standard controller, and it has technology inside of it that prevents stick drift from happening just in general. Again, you could use PowerA. That's another company, third party. They're typically anywhere between $30 to $45, even for the GameSir. They start at like $45. That's all you need. You don't need something super expensive. You don't need this massive scuff controller. But just having a third-party controller like the GameSir G7 SE, that is a huge upgrade to your game because you're actually going to be able to make precise movements. But now when it comes to your settings in the game, the first thing you're going to want to look at is your hitting view. Now, there are only two hitting views that I personally recommend. That is Strike Zone and Strike Zone High. You can play between the two, see which one you like the most. However, they are the most zoomed possible that you can see. You're not distracted by other things going around in the stadium, and you can just see the ball out of the hand super well. When it comes to hitting interface, you only want to be using zone hitting interface. This is what creates what is called the PCI, or the plate coverage indicator. Now, for the PCI, there is a feature called PCI Anchor. Basically, it allows you to put this in a spot where it's not just down the middle every single time. You can kind of lock it to a certain part of the strike zone. I don't personally use this. However, if you feel like this is something that suits your game, by all means, feel free to use it. Now, when it comes to the PCI, this is kind of something that you can play with. This is not like a one-size-fits-all type situation. What I prefer might not be what you prefer. What you prefer might not be what I prefer. So this is one of those things where you can kind of play with the settings that you do, see which one you like the most. I like using the BAT PCI. The beauty of the BAT PCI Center is that when you change from difficulties, the PCI before the pitch doesn't change size. So if you're ready to receive a pitch, the PCI on Legend looks the exact same as it does on Rookie. Obviously, it plays differently based on the difficulty, but there's that mental mindset of, okay, nothing's changed. Let's hit the ball now. Another thing too to make sure of is make sure that your vibration is off. This is something that kind of throws you off if you're going towards the outside parts of the strike zone. Make sure that's off and you don't have to worry about it from there on. So now that your equipment and settings are in the right spot, the next thing you want to consider is, what is my approach coming to the plate? The way I think of every at-bat in MLB The Show, I always try to make sure that I can time up the best fastball possible. So if I'm facing a guy like Randy Johnson or someone else who throws 102, 103 miles an hour, I always make sure that if there's one pitch that I'm able to hit in that game, it will be the fastball. Just like in real life, it is always easier to slow down to catch a pitch than it is to speed up and catch it. But once you are loaded into a game, what you are wanting to do is go into custom practices, and you can choose any pitcher in the game or any hitter in the game that you would like. I personally recommend using somebody that you kind of struggle to hit off the mound. You get that little bit of practice with them, and then use a player that either you really love or really hate, either just to kind of reinforce that you're playing well with that player, or if you aren't playing well with a player, you can throw them into custom practice and improve your skills with that swing as well. But coming into custom practice, your main goal that you're going to be wanting to do is two things. You want to A, put the PCI on the ball, being able to recognize the ball out of the hand where it's going to go, and B, you want to actually be able to time it up and at least get good contact on it. Now, seeing the ball out of the hand is a bit more of a tricky thing, and I do have a video coming out soon talking about how to read every single pitch individually out of the hand. However, I'm going to let Randy throw here, and typically when I see a pitcher start to wind up, I'm looking anywhere between their chin and the brim of their hat until their arm comes out ready to throw. So when Randy does his wind up, when I see his arm come out to the side, I'm able to track the ball coming directly from his hand, and it's coming directly into the plate. Now, obviously, depending on people's animations, specifically a guy like Randy Johnson, this is going to be a little bit trickier. There are some guys in the game, the animations actually look legitimately glitched just because they have really weird animations, or they speed up at a certain point or slow down at a certain point. And again, this is one of those places where you can actually practice that specific thing. So for a guy, like Aaron Loop, Yenier Cano, Felix Bautista, Randy Johnson, these are typical pitchers that you kind of see that, people typically tend to struggle with simply just because they're animations, not even because they're actually like a good pitcher or not, it's just because they throw weird. But if you are able to hit what we call a meta pitcher, this is one of those scenarios where you are actually going to become a great player, because at that point, if you're recognizing that ball out of the hand, even in the most weird animations, you're going to be hitting the ball no matter who's on the mound. Now, keep in mind, having an approach and seeing the ball out of the hand are actually kind of go hand in hand there. Not every single pitch that you see is going to be a strike, and plate discipline is going to be your biggest key. Being able to see when the ball is going to be a strike, when the ball is going to be a ball, that is going to influence your count. It's going to create more work for your opponent, and ultimately you're going to end up getting better swings and making better contact. Now, this might be a little bit controversial. There are a lot of people that recommend saying, hey, if you're late on every single swing, go into your custom practices and practice on Legend. I actually don't recommend doing that. The reason for me not recommending that is because if you are playing every single game that you play on All-Star, or just about every single game on All-Star, it doesn't make sense to me to practice on a difficulty anything else but what you expect to play on. Because, for example, let's say you are practicing on Legend and you get really used to Legend. You are playing fantastic on it, you're hitting the ball hard, you're timing it up. That doesn't translate into your later games. You're going to be early on everything. And ideally, you don't want to be early. You want to be either good timing or perfect timing. I think overall, it's a better effort to try to master the difficulty that everybody plays on, such as All-Star, and then try to work your way up from there if need be for ranked seasons. But now going into just practicing, custom practice is a great mode. You can just go ahead and expect to see pitches. You can make swings. And the beauty of it is you don't even have to let the ball land. If you click right stick, it actually comes back just off rip like that. And you can just practice different things. You can tell the pitcher to throw in different locations. You can turn up modifiers for different pitches, different speeds. There are custom rosters that kind of replicate what you would see in Diamond Dynasty, and this is something that I recommend doing if you are planning up trying to build your game. Now, the biggest thing that a lot of people always ask me is, how do I prevent myself from slamming the PCI? We all do it. Doesn't matter if you're the worst player in the world or the best player in the world. We all slam our PCIs, and it will happen even to the best of us. However, at the same time, the way you work on preventing slamming is by focus on making short, precise movements before you're able to take swings. So if you want to go into custom practice, you don't even need to take the swing. So for example, for this one, try to focus on making that short, precise movement. As you can see, that was down the middle. Kind of a bad example, but if he throws one in another part of the zone, just try to like get that muscle memory of just short movements rather than just trying to go as fast as you can to the bottom. Now, keep in mind too, pitch recognition also helps with this, because if you don't feel rushed to get to a pitch, you're not really worried about, having good timing at that point, and your timing's gonna be better, your PCI is gonna be better, and you're gonna feel a lot more relaxed at the plate. Now, like I said, keep in mind, short, precise movements. If you're slamming, you're not gonna be able to recover. I've had a couple moments where I've kind of went one way and then came back the other, and then it ended up being a hit just because I was able to get that PCI on it at the very last second. Now, if I slammed one way and then tried to slam all the way back, I probably would have completely missed it, and it would have been just an easy out for my opponent. Now, I do think the most important thing to remember through all of these steps, all of these tips, is that this is not going to be an overnight change. You might see a little bit of improvement super quickly, but to become a better player in this game, or a top player in this game, that's typically something that doesn't happen overnight. It takes an amount of time. It takes a lot of practice. This is not something that is just easy. Now, there are those people, of course, that can just pick up any game, be elite at it, but if you are not one of those people, don't get frustrated with the game. I understand this game has its flaws, and when you get good hit outs and stuff like that, that stuff will end up happening. But at the end of the day, if you think about it and say, okay, that was an out, but 3 weeks ago I wasn't making that swing at all, that is a good mindset to have going into it, just trying to get better at the game. But that is going to be all for today's video. Please leave a comment below of any tips that you might do that you want to suggest to other people, or if these tips in this video helped you out. I appreciate you guys, as always, for watching this video. Please be sure to sub to the channel and leave a like on this video. I will catch you on the next one. I appreciate you guys, and I will see y'all later.